They lied to you about your brain, about your potential, about how smart we as a species truly are. For decades, we were told a comforting story that humans are getting smarter, that evolution was guiding us toward higher intelligence, that every new generation would be sharper, quicker, and more capable than the last. But what if that story was wrong? What if the opposite is true? Recent studies suggest that human intelligence is actually in decline, not just stagnating, but actively regressing. It's not some far-off sci-fi dystopia. It's here, and it's happening right now. For years, we looked at rising IQ scores across the 20th century and thought we were evolving intellectually. That was called the Flynn effect. It showed IQ scores increasing steadily decade after decade. But something changed. Since the early 1990s, those scores began to reverse. In nation after nation, Finland, Denmark, France, Germany, the UK, IQ scores are falling. Not slowly, sharply. In some places, we've lost the equivalent of an entire IQ point every decade. And it's not just IQ tests. It's our capacity for critical thought, for long-term memory, for deep attention. So how did we miss it? Simple. Because we were too busy being entertained, too busy scrolling, swiping, consuming. We've confused information for intelligence. We assume that just because we could access all the world's data instantly, we were smarter. But intelligence isn't about access. It's about processing. It's about your ability to think clearly under pressure, to solve problems, to question, to reflect, to focus for longer than 15 seconds. And if you're honest with yourself, when was the last time you truly focused? Not skimmed a headline, not listened to a podcast while multitasking, but really focused, sat down in silence with a difficult idea and wrestled with it. That's intelligence, and it's fading. The truth is, we're not evolving intellectually. We're devolving behaviorally. But it's not too late. This video is not just a warning. It's a wake-up call to reclaim your mind, your potential, your power. Because once you realize they lied about how smart we are, you finally understand. The game isn't about how smart you were born. It's about whether you choose to stay sharp or let the world make you dull. There's a silent crisis unraveling right in front of us, and almost no one is talking about it. We're in the middle of an intellectual recession, a measurable, observable, and terrifying decline in human intelligence. For most of the 20th century, IQ scores kept going up. Scientists called it the Flynn effect, and it gave us hope that our species was becoming more intelligent, more capable, more evolved. It made sense. Better nutrition, better schools, more access to information. We assumed the upward trend would continue forever. But then it stopped, and then it reversed. Starting in the 1990s, researchers began noticing something strange. In countries that once showed strong IQ gains, the numbers started dropping. Finland, Norway, Denmark, France, Australia, the United States. This isn't a blip, it's a global pattern, and it's accelerating. Some researchers estimate that IQ is dropping by up to 7 points per generation in certain populations. To put that in perspective, just 3 points can be the difference between a university graduate and someone who struggles with high school. 7 points? That's societal level erosion. But why? What's causing this intellectual nosedive? Is it diet, screen time, microplastics, education, genetics? The answer is all of the above and more. We've built a world optimized for comfort, not cognition. We've engineered distraction into every corner of our lives. We've created systems that reward obedience, not originality. We've stopped challenging the mind, and it's starting to atrophy. Think about it. When was the last time you memorized something, solved a difficult problem without looking it up, sat still in silence and thought deeply? We used to be forced to think, to remember, to struggle. Now, we outsource everything to apps, AI, and algorithms. This is the crisis no one wants to admit. We're becoming mentally dependent, and mental dependency leads to intellectual decline. Here's the terrifying part. This decline isn't just individual, it's civilizational, because the future doesn't belong to the strongest or the richest. It belongs to the smartest. And if we keep going down this path, we're not just risking a dumber population. We're risking the collapse of innovation, the death of wisdom, and the end of human potential as we know it. This is the IQ crisis nobody's talking about. But if you're still listening, you're one of the few who can do something about it. The question is, will you?
We were told that modern life would liberate us, that convenience would free up our minds, that technology would make us smarter. But what if the opposite is true? What if modern life is actually making us dumber? Let's look at the symptoms. You forget why you walked into a room. You check your phone 120 times a day. You struggle to read more than a few paragraphs without zoning out. That's not laziness, that's design. The systems around you aren't built for deep thinking. They're built for addiction, for speed, not substance, for scrolling, not studying. And over time, these systems reshape your brain. Modern life is a cocktail of cognitive sabotage. Here's what's in it. Hyperstimulation. You're bombarded with lights, sounds, pings, notifications. Your brain is constantly in alert mode, so it never reaches the calm required for reflection or insight. Multitasking. You think you're doing 10 things at once, but you're actually switching between them inefficiently, degrading your focus and memory every time. Studies show multitasking can lower your effective IQ by up to 15 points, the equivalent of being legally drunk. Instant gratification. Want something? One click, one tap, one swipe. But the more we reward immediacy, the less tolerance we build for delay, patience, and deep problem solving. The very skills intelligence depends on. Outsourcing thought. We don't remember phone numbers. We don't know directions. We don't even write our own sentences anymore. AI does. Every time we let a machine do our thinking, our own thinking muscles weaken. Now consider this. Your brain evolved over millions of years to solve hard problems in silence, with time, in nature, under pressure. Modern life has stripped all of that away. It has replaced silence with noise, nature with screens, pressure with convenience. We are overstimulated and underdeveloped. And here's the kicker. Most of us aren't even aware it's happening. You think you're just tired or too busy to think. But what's really happening is slow, invisible cognitive erosion, death by 1,000 distractions. The ancient Stoics warned against the easy life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." But modern life doesn't want you to think. It wants you to react. And the more...
Let's be honest. We love technology. It makes life easier, faster, more connected. But here's the uncomfortable truth. What makes life easier often makes us weaker. Ask yourself, how often do you let autocorrect fix your spelling? Let GPS tell you where to go, even to places you've been. Let a chatbot answer your questions before you think them through. That's not just convenience. That's cognitive outsourcing. We've entered a phase of human history where technology no longer just supports us, it substitutes us, and the cost is higher than we realize. Because the brain, like any muscle, atrophies with disuse. If you don't use your memory, you lose it. If you don't wrestle with problems, you lose your resilience. If you don't create ideas, you become a slave to someone else's. This is how human potential quietly dies. You don't notice it immediately. You still feel productive, still feel busy, still feel connected. But underneath, your mind is softening. Your will is fading. Your capacity for deep, original thought is evaporating. And here's the real danger. Technology evolves exponentially, but human wisdom does not. We've built machines that can simulate human genius, but we've stopped building the inner strength to match it. We marvel at AI's creativity while neglecting our own. We praise automation while forgetting the joy and growth found in struggle. This isn't anti-technology. This is pro-awareness. Technology is a tool, nothing more. But if we stop using it as a tool and start using it as a crutch, a babysitter, or worse, a substitute for thinking, it becomes a mental parasite. Nietzsche once said, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." That's the crossroads we face now. Will you command technology, or will you be commanded by it? We were never meant to be passive consumers of synthetic intelligence. We were meant to be creators of meaning, architects of thought, explorers of consciousness. Technology should expand our potential, not replace it. So the next time you reach for the easy answer, the algorithmic solution, the instant fix, pause. Ask yourself, am I using this tool to grow, or am I shrinking behind it? Because the more we let machines think for us, the less we remember how to be fully human.
You probably think school is where people get smarter, that it's designed to cultivate your potential, that it's built to expand your mind and prepare you for life. But here's the harsh truth most never hear. School wasn't made to make you smarter. It was made to make you obedient. Let's go back in time. Modern education systems weren't born in a vacuum. They were engineered during the Industrial Revolution to serve a purpose, to create workers, not thinkers. Factory owners needed punctual, compliant, predictable employees. Governments needed obedient citizens who wouldn't question authority. So they built schools that ring bells like factories, separate subjects like assembly lines, reward repetition over reflection, and punish questioning more than conformity. And guess what? It worked. It built a workforce. It built an economy. But it did not build intelligence. Real intelligence is messy, non-linear, curious. It asks why. It challenges norms. It gets bored with repetition and seeks deeper meaning. But school, traditional school, trains the opposite. It tells you to memorize facts you'll forget, to follow instructions without questioning them, to chase grades instead of understanding, to pass the test instead of mastering the subject. And what does that produce? A generation that knows how to play the system, but not how to think independently. It produces people who fear being wrong more than they desire to be right. People who regurgitate instead of reinvent. People who wait to be told what to do, rather than learning how to lead themselves. The philosopher Ivan Illich once wrote, "School is the advertising agency which makes you believe that you need the society as it is." And that's the tragedy, because human intelligence is not a narrow test score. It's a vast, creative, adaptive force. It's emotional, logical, spiritual, visionary. It's something you cultivate, not something you receive by sitting in rows for 12 years. Now, to be clear, learning is sacred, but schooling and learning are not the same thing. Learning is what happens when you pursue truth. Schooling is what happens when you pursue approval. And the more we confuse the two, the more we risk building a society that's overeducated, but underdeveloped. So if you're listening to this thinking, thoughtful, why didn't they teach me this in school? That's not a mistake, that's by design. And it's your invitation to start your real education, the one you build yourself. Read what matters, question everything, reject blind conformity. And remember, the smartest people you'll ever meet rarely fit into the system they were raised in. There's a truth about intelligence that makes people uncomfortable. A truth that doesn't fit nicely into the narrative of equality. A truth that many are afraid to even whisper. Here it is. Intelligence is, in part, genetic. Yes, your environment matters. Yes, your habits, your diet, your effort, your discipline all play a role. But the foundation of your cognitive potential, a large chunk of it was written into your DNA before you ever took your first breath. It's not politically correct to say this, but science has said it for decades. Studies on twins, siblings, and adopted children show that intelligence is highly heritable, up to 80% in some estimates. That doesn't mean it's fixed. It doesn't mean you're doomed or gifted. It means that the range of your mental capacity is set early on. But how far you climb within that range, that's up to you. But here's where things get even darker. In the past, survival favored intelligence. The world was harsh, complex, dangerous. Those who could think deeply, adapt quickly, and solve problems were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. But now, society has changed the rules. We no longer select for intelligence. We support the decline of it. Today, people can thrive socially, economically, even reproduce and raise families without ever developing or using their full cognitive abilities.
The pressure to be mentally sharp has been replaced by the pressure to conform, consume, and obey. We are witnessing what some scientists fear is reverse selection, a quiet devolution where traits like resilience, introspection, and intellectual independence are being slowly bred out of the population. And that's the uncomfortable truth. We're no longer evolving for survival. We're evolving for comfort. And comfort does not require intelligence. Now pause and really think about that. What happens to a civilization that no longer rewards depth, creativity, or cognitive struggle? It becomes stagnant, then fragile, then dependent. And once dependence is the norm, true intelligence becomes a threat, because a thinking population asks dangerous questions. It resists easy answers. It doesn't buy the illusion. That's why your genetic potential is just the beginning. If you were born with high potential, but you waste it in comfort and distraction, it dies.
Think about this. When was the last time the world saw a true genius? A new Einstein, a modern Da Vinci, a revolutionary like Nikola Tesla. Where are they? Where are the minds so brilliant they bend the trajectory of history? We used to produce them. Men and women whose ideas shattered the boundaries of what was possible. But now, silence. Sure, we have smart people. We have innovation. But the depth, the boldness, the almost mystical intellectual force that once defined genius, it's missing. This isn't just nostalgia. It's measurable. Genius, true genius, isn't just about IQ. It's about originality, vision, courage, the ability to think thoughts no one has ever thought, and then build something from them. But genius doesn't emerge in isolation. It needs a specific ecosystem to survive. And that ecosystem is dying. Here's why. First, genius needs solitude, time to think, to wander mentally, to wrestle with impossibly complex problems without interruption. Today, we are interrupted every 47 seconds. Notifications, distractions, noise, it's all designed to keep our minds busy, but never deep. Second, genius needs intellectual struggle, boredom, frustration, complexity. That's the soil creativity grows from. But in a world obsessed with speed and comfort, we avoid anything that doesn't provide instant gratification. We kill the exact conditions genius requires. Third, genius needs cultural permission. It needs a society that values deep thought over viral clicks, that praises questions over certainty, that celebrates long-term vision instead of short-term profits. And right now, that society doesn't exist. We don't just ignore genius. We suffocate it. We drown it in noise. We reject it when it challenges us. We mock it when it doesn't fit the algorithm. It's not that geniuses have vanished.
It's that we've stopped creating the environment where they can emerge and thrive. Ask yourself, if Einstein was born today, would he be working in solitude or stuck in Zoom calls? Would he be following curiosity or buried under student debt and deadlines? Would he be sketching formulas on a chalkboard or forced to build a person? By now, you've probably felt it. The noise, the distraction, the mental fog that creeps in more often than it used to. You're not imagining things. The world is designed to pull your attention away from what matters, to weaken your focus, to make thinking optional. But here's the truth. You are not powerless. You can't change the system. You can't stop the decline of civilization on your own. But you can take back your own mind. And that's where everything starts. Because the war on intelligence isn't being fought on global stages. It's being fought between your ears. So how do you reverse the decline? You train. Not your body, your mind. Here's how. 1. Protect your focus like it's gold. Turn off notifications. Delete apps that steal your attention. Create windows of uninterrupted time every day to think, read, write, solve problems. Focus is the foundation of intelligence. Without it, everything else crumbles. 2. Embrace discomfort. Stop chasing ease. Start chasing growth. Read difficult books. Learn things that challenge you. Sit in the tension of, I don't get it, and stay there until you do. Mental growth, like physical growth, only happens through strain. 3. Think deeply every day. Don't just consume. Reflect. Journal. Ask hard questions. Train yourself to live philosophically, to examine your assumptions, your thoughts, your beliefs. This is what separates thinkers from followers. 4. Limit passive input. Scrolling is easy. Watching is easy. But too much passive input dulls the mind. Replace quantity with quality. Fewer videos, fewer headlines, more books, more silence, more solitude. 5. Reclaim your curiosity. Intelligence thrives in curiosity. Ask more questions. Explore topics unrelated to your job or degree. Wonder like a child. Because the most brilliant minds are not those who know everything. They're the ones who are still hungry to know more. 6. Build a mental fortress. Your environment matters. Surround yourself with people who think. Create a space where your mind is encouraged to grow, not just be entertained. Audit your mental diet. What are you feeding your brain daily? 7. Discipline over dopamine. Train your brain to delay gratification. Stop switching between tasks. Stop chasing cheap hits of stimulation. The more you resist the urge to escape the moment, the stronger your mind becomes. Discipline is intelligence applied over time. The truth is, intelligence isn't something you lose overnight. It's eroded by convenience, by... We've reached a crossroads. One road is quiet, slow, and difficult. The other is fast, loud, and easy. One leads to self-mastery. The other, to decay. And here's the hard truth most people don't want to hear. The future of humanity doesn't depend on technology. It doesn't depend on politics, corporations, or even climate. It depends on this: whether the individual, you, chooses to think, to question, to rise above passive existence, because everything else follows that. No civilization has ever collapsed because of a lack of gadgets, but many have fallen because they stopped producing people who could think for themselves. If
If we keep going the way we are, living for distraction, outsourcing thought, avoiding discomfort, we don't just risk becoming less intelligent, we risk becoming less human. We trade freedom for convenience, truth for comfort, depth for noise, and slowly, silently, we become slaves to a system we never agreed to build, a system that profits from your ignorance, that feeds on your attention, that survives only if you stop asking why. But you have a choice. You can unplug, not from the internet, but from the mental matrix it has created. You can choose awareness over autopilot, reflection over reaction, meaning over momentum. This doesn't mean living in the past. It means evolving with intention. It means using technology, not being used by it. It means pursuing wisdom, not just data. The philosophers knew this. Socrates, Marcus Aurelius, Nietzsche, Jung, they all warned us. When the mind is neglected, the soul suffers. And when the soul suffers long enough, civilizations fall. So yes, this is bigger than you, but it also starts with you.
Because intelligence isn't just about personal success. It's the foundation of everything. How we lead, how we love, how we solve problems, how we build the future. You don't need to be a genius to matter. You just need to be awake, present, disciplined, aware. In the end, the fate of our species doesn't hinge on the next app, the next election, or the next invention. It hinges on whether enough people look in the mirror and ask, am I thinking clearly? Am I living intentionally? Am I cultivating a mind strong enough to carry the weight of the world I want to live in? Because the world will be shaped by those who say yes. And the future? The future belongs to the focused,